Okay, Simon, welcome. Welcome to this interview. Today we're going to know about your testimony in the process of preparing an important interview that you have in the university you work now. So I just want to say welcome to you first. And can you tell me a little bit about yourself and about this process that you were facing?
Thanks so much for having me. I've always been an Italian teacher, but during COVID times, I lost my job actually, and so I was doing some miscellaneous jobs. And then at the end of 2024, this job came up that I really wanted at a university here, a local university, and I decided to apply for that. It was the first time that I could actually get a fixed position, which I really wanted, and so I really wanted this job. But I also hadn't ever done a job interview before. I'd seen to people had offered me contracts here and there, but I hadn't actually done a job interview, and that's kind of where you came in.
Yes, that's great. And tell me, like, how did you make the decision of taking these sessions?
Yeah, to be honest, well, it was actually we obviously knew each other before this, and I hadn't really thought about a job coach at that point. And you suggested that you could help me out, and that sort of, sparked my curiosity. And I thought, yeah, okay, let's give this a go. Um, and in hindsight, I'm so glad that I did. I think it made a huge difference in so many aspects. So yeah, I went from being a little skeptical of job coaches to being, okay, that was almost essential.
Okay, perfect. So tell me a little bit about this job interview process because it wasn't like the typical one.
No, yeah, there were some surprising things that even surprised me on the day, but at the end of the day, I was pretty well prepared. So this job interview, they asked me to do an online interview, and there ended up being four interviewers on a panel, and they asked me to do a presentation. And then after the presentation, then I answered probably maybe six or seven questions. I think the whole interview went for about 45 minutes in total. It was quite a grueling interview, but I felt like I was well prepared and did the best I could.
And tell me a little bit of how did this coaching sessions help you? Like in which way specifically?
Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure where to start here, but definitely my confidence. Having you there, and I always felt that you believed that I could get this job, especially coming from someone who's never done a job interview before. And this was
Mm,
not any sort of interview just for like a little job. This was quite a major job
yes.
in a way,
Mm,
and it felt quite overwhelming.
mm,
But I felt like when we did those practice rounds and you gave me your feedback, that it sort of instilled a confidence and like a peace in me that I knew that it was actually going to be okay. I don't know whether you remember, but when we did the first rounds, my presentation didn't go very well at all.
yes.
And then
Mm,
you said, okay, let's do that again. Let's work on this, and this. And then the presentation on the day ended up going really well, I thought. So I was really happy with that. Another thing I would say is that someone like me wasn't prepared for this so-called lingo that they're looking for, but you knew exactly the words that they were looking for, the key concepts, and I felt like you knew how to hit the targets. Whereas I didn't. I was
mm,
just going to go into that interview and be myself, which is obviously a good thing. But I didn't know what interviewers were actually looking for. So I kind of felt like you prepared me really well for hitting the targets, actually, and the keywords. And not only the keywords, but also things to avoid saying, which I just wasn't aware of. So you stopped me a couple of times or multiple times and said, okay, think about that word. That could be much stronger word if you said this, or don't say that because then that gives the impression that you're only, half interested in things like that. And I think that it kind of polished me and I was ready to go into that interview. And there were so many of the questions, even though they did throw some curveball type questions in the interview, what we prepared really helped me answer their questions. There were some of the classic questions that I wasn't aware of until actually the night before when we did that session. And
mm.
I can still remember when I said a couple of the answers that we had prepared together, that the interviewers literally went, Yeah, like they were
Okay,
impressed, and I
perfect.
was thinking, oh yeah, thank goodness that we had that session the night before,
Mm,
because yeah, there were some key questions in there that I just wasn't aware that they were classic type questions,
mm.
and then I went into the interview at the end of the day quite well prepared. So yeah.
That's awesome. Did you learn something about yourself in this process, like as a professional or in a preparation for an interview?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's probably a slightly unusual answer, but what I felt like I'd always been offered these jobs, and I wasn't quite sure whether I actually had what it took for these jobs because I'd never done a professional interview. It was more through contacts and things like this. And when I did this job interview, and I could see that you actually believed that I would get the job, which was kind of surprising to me because I'd never done an interview and things like that before. And I just had this overwhelming confidence that you thought I was going to get the job more than I was going to get it. So I think one of the most important things is that you brought me to a level where I believed that I had what it took to get the job. And if I hadn't done the sessions, I probably, when I saw the panel of four people there, I think I would have felt overwhelmed and thought, oh, no, I'm not going to get it. But what we went through, particularly that night right before the actual interview, I felt like you instilled this confidence and also a peace. You went through technical things, but you also did practical things as well, like breathing techniques, talking to yourself, making sure you can tell yourself, you can do this sort of thing. And yeah, at the end of the day, I kind of believed that I could get the job, and so probably that was the most important thing for me.
Perfect. Excellent. And finally, like, would you recommend these sessions, these coaching sessions for someone that maybe could be potentially interested in this?
100%, yes. 100%. If you're anything like me, and thinking that a job coach is probably an optional extra, I would reconsider that and say, okay, actually, it's an essential thing. If you want a job enough, you should get a job coach. Okay, it might cost a couple of $100. At the end of the day, you might be getting the job of your dreams and you don't want to play around with it. So, for me, it was honestly because you said that you might be able to help me and I was curious at the time. And then I've gone on the other side now and I can see 100%. If I was ever to go for another job, I would 100% get a job coach. Yes. And I would highly recommend you actually. Really thank you for you obviously have all the technical skills and the expertise. But one thing that I really appreciated is that you were like personally involved. And I really appreciated that you went beyond, above and beyond to help me there. I felt like you went along the whole process with me before, after, contacting me and everything like that. And it was something that I really appreciated.
Okay, perfect. So we're gonna finish the interview today, and you are now in the working in one of the most prestigious university here in Western Australia, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
that's awesome, awesome news.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks again.